Right now, in the most populous trial district in the nation, federal prosecutors have descended upon California's vote counting centers, launching multiple high-stakes investigations into alleged election fraud. At the exact same time, the Department of Justice is waging a massive legal war to seize the personal data of millions of voters across the country.
It's a truly unprecedented situation we're unpacking today.
If you enjoy content like this, please take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications so you'll always know when new content is released.
And before we dive into the sources, we do have a brief administrative note.
As a quick update, we continue to monitor the Martin Stevens v. OpenAI matter. It is important to note that this is still not a lawsuit. We remain in a voluntary quiet period at the request of Martin Stevens to allow time for any potential developments behind the scenes. At the time of this recording, we do not know whether any progress has been made. No settlement discussions or negotiations have been publicly confirmed. We can also report that the dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Martin Stevens remains safe from both a physical and legal standpoint. We will provide updates if circumstances change.
Thanks for that. Now, getting into today's deep dive, we really need to set some ground rules right up front.
Because our sources today contain highly charged political content from both left-wing and right-wing perspectives, we want to make it absolutely clear to you. We are not taking any sides. We are not endorsing any viewpoints. Our sole mission is to impartially report on the content provided in your sources and convey the ideas exactly as they are laid out in the original material.
Right. Our only job here is to break down what's actually in this massive stack of sources we're looking at today.
And it is a huge stack.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got a highly detailed DOJ Office of Legal Counsel memo. This is from May 2026. We're also pulling from various news reports from KSQ, My News LA, Click on Detroit, Democracy Docket.
Plus the state's own official materials.
Exactly. The California Secretary of State's trusted info site. And we've got some biographical data on the key figures involved, along with a really scathing press release from U.S. Senator Peter Welch.
Yeah, that press release is wild. But, to really understand this macro-level federal strategy, this whole war over your data, we have to start on the ground.
Right, at the micro level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Specifically, inside a ballot processing center in Los Angeles County during the primary elections.
We're talking about the governor's race here.
Yeah.
And the L.A. mayoral race.
Yeah, and following President Trump's public claims that Democrats are cheating in these primaries, this guy named Bill Saley steps up to the microphone. He announces multiple active federal probes into election fraud.
Which is just a massive escalation.
It really is. I mean, he even sent a federal prosecutor to physically walk through LA County's ballot operations.
Right, which is an incredibly bold, highly visible move. You don't do that quietly. It's meant to send a clear message that the federal government is watching everything you do.
So who is this guy? Because to understand why he's doing this, we kind of need to look at his background, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bill Saley was appointed in April 2025 by Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Okay.
And he was appointed to be the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. Now, this isn't just any district. It is the most populous federal trial district in the entire nation.
We're talking tens of millions of people.
Exactly. Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside counties, it's a massive jurisdiction.
Right, and he's incredibly familiar with the landscape there. He's a former California state assemblyman. He's the son of Lebanese immigrants.
And he was federal prosecutor before all this, too.
Yeah. He actually worked on the case following that horrific San Bernardino terrorist attack back in 2015, so he clearly knows his way around high-stakes federal investigations.
He's not a rookie.
Not at all. But what exactly is his justification for sending federal prosecutors into county ballot centers? What's his core argument here?
Well, his core argument is that California's election system has these severe structural vulnerabilities.
Okay, what does he mean by that?
He points specifically to the combination of universal vote by mail and a total lack of voter ID requirements at the polls.
So doing both at the same time is the issue for him.
Exactly. His stance is that this specific combination creates an environment where fraud can essentially just, go undetected by the state.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It's almost like Saley is basically comparing California's universal mail-in voting to an honor system buffet.
Oh, an honor system buffet. I like that.
Right, proponents of the system say, hey, it feeds everyone efficiently, it guarantees access to the ballot. But he's arguing that without a bouncer at the door checking IDs, the system fundamentally invites abuse.
That's exactly his argument. And to back that up, he isn't just speaking hypothetically. he references a tangible recent case from Marina Del Rey.
Oh, right. I saw that in the local news sources.
Yeah, a woman was charged with allegedly paying homeless individuals on Skid Row to register to vote.
Wow.
So for Asalee, that isn't just a one-off crime. He views it as proof of concept. It's proof that the exact vulnerability he's talking about is actively being exploited right now.
Okay, but wait. I was reading through the court filings from the Democracy docket source, and there is a massive complication here with Asalee himself.
Yes, the October ruling.
Right. A federal judge ruled back in October that Asalee had unlawfully continued serving as the acting U.S. attorney because he never got Senate confirmation.
He bypassed the standard confirmation process.
Exactly. And the judge explicitly disqualified him from officially supervising criminal cases. So my question is, how on earth is he still running these federal election fraud probes?
It is a fascinating legal workaround. I mean, it's really clever. While the judge removed his authority as the acting U.S. attorney, Asalee was legally allowed to remain in his secondary role,
Which was what?
the first assistant U.S. attorney.
Oh, wow. So he just took one step down.
Basically, yeah. Practically speaking, he stepped one rung down the official administrative ladder, but he effectively remains at the absolute top of the Los Angeles office's hierarchy anyway.
So he's still driving these exact same investigations forward.
Exactly. He's just doing it under a slightly different title to satisfy the court ruling.
That is wild. Okay, so Asalee's local investigations in LA aren't just happening in a vacuum, right? Like, he explicitly noted in his announcement that he is coordinating his efforts with Washington.
Specifically with Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon.
Right, so he's essentially serving as the local boots-on-the-ground intelligence gatherer for a much larger national dragnet.
That's the perfect way to look at it. Harmeet Dillon is really the central architect of this broader federal strategy. She took over the DOJ's Civil Rights Division in 2025.
And looking into her background is fascinating because she really doesn't fit neatly into any standard political box.
She's got a very unique resume.
She really does. She's a Dartmouth and UVA law grad. She founded the Center for American Liberty. And during the pandemic, she became super famous in conservative circles because she sued Governor Gavin Newsom.
Over the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders, right?
Yeah, and the church singing bans. But then you look further back, right after 9/11, and she actually served on the board of the ACLU in Northern California.
Oh, really? The ACLU?
Yeah, she was there to fight discrimination against Sikhs and South Asians.
Right, because she is a devout Sikh herself. It's a complex background. I mean, she performed the Sikh prayer at the 2016 and 2024 Republican National Conventions.
Which makes what happened in 2023 so crazy.
When she ran for RNC chair, yeah. She actually faced this whisper campaign from within some factions of her own party, specifically targeting her faith.
So she has literally been on multiple sides of high-profile civil rights battles over the decades.
Exactly. And that history heavily informs how aggressively she is leading the Civil Rights Division now.
And that aggression, I mean, it's laid out perfectly in this DOJ Office of Legal Counsel memo from May 12, 2026.
The OLC memo.
Yeah, this document is basically the blueprint for the entire federal operation. But before we get into what it actually says, what exactly is an OLC memo? Because to a layperson, it sounds like just an inner office email.
Right, it sounds mundane.
But it carries way more weight than that, doesn't it?
Oh, so much more weight. The Office of Legal Counsel is often referred to as the Supreme Court of the Executive Branch.
Wait, really?
The Supreme Court of the Executive Branch.
Yeah. When the OLC issues a memo interpreting a law, every single federal agency, including the FBI, the DHS, the entire DOJ, they treat that memo as binding federal law.
Unless a federal judge steps in? Unless a federal court explicitly strikes it down. But until then, it is the law of the land for the executive branch.
Okay, so this specific memo notes that President Trump issued Executive Order 14248. This order directs the Attorney General to enforce laws restricting non-citizens from voting.
Right.
And so Dillon's division proposed this massive data sweep in response. They want statewide voter lists from across the entire country.
And they want to share those lists with Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI.
Right. To cross-reference local voter rolls with federal databases to try and find illegal aliens. But here is where the tension really spikes. If you live in one of these states, the federal government is demanding your specific date of birth, your driver's license number, your social security number.
Data that your state explicitly promised by law to keep private.
Exactly. So how does the federal government force a state to just hand over that private data when state privacy laws literally forbid election officials from sharing it.
That is the exact legal knot that this OLC memo attempts to untie.
Hmm.
And their argument is incredibly aggressive.
How so?
They lean heavily on the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Specifically, there's Section 301, which requires state election officers to retain all records relating to voter registration.
Okay.
And then Section 303 allows the Attorney General to demand those records.
But the states push back on that, right? I mean, I saw in the sources, the states basically said, hey, we generated these voter lists internally. They didn't come into our possession from some outside party, so this 1960 law doesn't apply to our digital databases.
Yes, and the OLC memo dismisses that argument entirely. They argue that possession includes things you create yourself.
Of course they do.
But the real hammer the DOJ brings down here is constitutional. They invoke the Supremacy Clause and the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution.
Meaning federal law trumps state law.
Period. The DOJ asserts that when federal law and state law conflict, the federal government wins. Therefore, their mandate to produce these records wholly preempts and overrides any state-level privacy or confidentiality laws.
Wow. It's almost like using a fire hose designed to put out a burning house, but you turn it around to just blast open the front door.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, the Civil Rights Act of 1960 was originally passed to empower the federal government to protect minority voters from state-level voter suppression in the Jim Crow South.
And now, 66 years later, the DOJ is using that exact same statute to seize state voter rolls to investigate potential voter fraud and hunt for undocumented immigrants.
It is a profound pivot in how that law is being applied by the Civil Rights Division. And as you can probably imagine, states are not just quietly handing over the keys to their data vaults.
No, not at all. California in particular is mounting a fierce informational and legal resistance. They're pushing back incredibly hard on the narrative being spun by Delon and Asali.
Yeah, you can actually see this playing out in real time on the California Secretary of State's official Trusted Info campaign site.
They're trying to pre-bunk the fraud claims.
Exactly. They are basically trying to calm the public down by explaining the actual boring mechanics of how elections work. Right. For instance, regarding the claim that dead people are voting in droves, the state explicitly outlines their list maintenance. They routinely use data from the California Department of Public Health and the Social Security Administration to sweep the rolls and actively remove deceased voters.
But the biggest flashpoint, the thing that really drives the whole fraud narrative on the right, is the slow counting of ballots.
Oh, absolutely. President Trump and his allies point to the delayed results, where it takes weeks to call a race, as direct evidence of cheating.
Right. But the California Secretary of State's office explains that this delay isn't some nefarious flaw. It's a legally mandated multi-step security process.
And understanding the mechanics of how this works is so crucial. Like, imagine you are an election worker in California. You've got a mail-in ballot envelope in your hand. You can't just rip it open and count the vote right there.
No, not at all. First, California law dictates that mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day must be accepted, even if they arrive days later.
Which automatically stretches the timeline. And once it arrives, you have to pull up a digital scan of that voter's signature.
Right, which might be from a DMV record from like 10 years ago.
Exactly. And a human being, or a specialized machine, has to compare that old DMV record to the rushed signature on the outside of this new envelope.
And if it's a mismatch.
Well, if it's a mismatch, you can't just throw the ballot away. You have a legal obligation to contact the voter directly and allow them to cure, or essentially fix, the signature issue.
Which takes days.
Right. So multiply that friction by 20 million registered voters, plus processing provisional ballots, and you see exactly why counting takes a full month.
And you can also see how that built-in delay naturally breeds suspicion.
Yeah, it's a fundamental trade-off. California has clearly prioritized voter enfranchisement and making sure everyone has access, which inherently takes more time to process securely.
However, critics see this entirely differently. Like in our sources, Republican candidate Steve Hilton calls this month-long wait for results a monument to government incompetence.
Oh, wow. A monument to incompetence.
Yeah. He contrasts California's status as the world's fourth largest economy with all this tech innovation against its inability to count votes quickly. His argument is that the delay itself destroys public confidence, regardless of how secure the state claims the back-end process is.
That makes sense from a optics perspective, and that Trusted Info site also tackles some really persistent, granular rumors that play into those optics.
Like the envelope holes.
Yes. The idea that the two holes punched in the official return envelopes are only there so corrupt election officials can peek inside and toss out Republican ballots.
I've heard that one.
The state explains the actual mechanism, and it's super simple. Those holes are a dual-purpose design. First, they help visually impaired voters locate exactly where they need to sign the envelope by feeling for the holes.
Oh, that makes total sense.
And second, they help election workers quickly verify that the envelope is completely empty after the ballot is extracted, so nothing gets left behind in the mailroom.
They also address the really persistent rumor about felons voting in California.
Right.
The state clarifies that while you cannot vote while you are actively serving a state or federal prison term, your voting rights are automatically restored the exact moment that prison term is served.
Meaning former felons are legally voting.
Exactly. Which often gets conflated with illegal voting in the broader national political discourse.
Okay, so you have this intense informational warfare happening at the state level to try and calm the public. But this isn't just a state-level fight anymore.
No, it's reached Congress.
Lawmakers in Washington are sounding the alarm. Specifically, U.S. Senator Peter Welch. He looked at Harmeet Dillon's massive data sweep plan and released a completely scathing press release on May 8, 2026.
Senator Welch absolutely excoriates Dillon's leadership. I mean, he argues that her demand for full access to voter rolls, again, we're talking about looking for Social Security numbers and driver's license numbers, he says this risks the mass disenfranchisement of millions of eligible voters.
And he also states that her actions represent a marked departure from the Civil Rights Division's 70-year tradition of actually protecting the right to vote.
Right. But Welch doesn't just attack the politics of it. He points out a massive technical flaw in the DOJ's underlying enforcement mechanism.
Okay, explain that.
Well, remember how the DOJ wants to run these state voter rolls against the Department of Homeland Security's databases to hunt for non-citizens?
Yes, specifically a DHS database known as the SAVE database.
Right.
Wait, what actually is the SAVE database? Because Senator Welch claims in his release that it has a 14% error rate when used this way. If it's really that inaccurate, what was it originally built to do?
That's the crux of the issue. SAVE stands for Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements.
Entitlements, okay.
Yes. It is run by Homeland Security, and it was originally built for local government agencies to verify if someone is eligible for certain benefits. Like, say, a local housing authority, checking if someone qualifies for federal housing assistance.
So it's a specialized tool.
Exactly. It was never designed to be a bulk auditing tool for 150 million registered voters across the country.
Which explains the error rate. I mean, if a voter gets married and changes her name, or if a legal immigrant becomes a naturalized citizen, but the SAVE database just hasn't updated their file yet, it flags a mismatch.
Right.
And if you apply a 14% error rate to tens of millions of voters, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of legal, eligible citizens falsely flagged as non-citizens.
Precisely. And this leads back to your earlier question about how states actually fight an OLC memo.
Yeah, because if the DOJ has the supremacy clause on their side and they have this memo acting as executive law, do the states really have a choice? Do they legally have to hand this private data over?
According to Senator Welch's letter, the states are saying absolutely not. He reveals that 30 states, and this includes both Republican and Democratic-led states, along with Washington, D.C., have flat out refused the DOJ's demands.
Citing their own state privacy laws.
Exactly. And in response, Dillon's division actually sued them.
They sued 30 states.
Yes. But here is the critical legal reality check. As of Welch's letter, every single federal court that has reviewed these cases on the merits has dismissed the DOJ's claims.
Wow. So the courts are just not buying it.
They are not buying the DOJ's aggressive use of the 1960 Civil Rights Act to bypass state privacy protections.
That is a massive legal roadblock for the DOJ. And Senator Welch is pressing them on another front, too. He's demanding answers about what happens to this data if the DOJ eventually wins.
Right, the contractor issue.
Yeah, he wants to know exactly which private contractors the DOJ is sharing this highly sensitive voter data with. And he's demanding the DOJ produce actual evidence of their claims that tens of thousands of non-citizens are on the rolls in the first place.
So if we step back and connect all of these pieces, from the ballot centers in L.A. with Bill Asaley all the way to the courtrooms in D.C. with Harmeet Dillon, we can see the ultimate standoff taking shape here.
How would you summarize it?
On one side, federal prosecutors like Asaley and Dillon genuinely view universal mail-in voting and a lack of voter ID as severe systemic vulnerabilities. They believe these systems inherently invite fraud, and they are utilizing novel interpretations of 1960s civil rights statutes to
Right.
pry open state election systems because they feel federal oversight is the only remedy.
And on the exact opposite side, the state election officials and congressional critics like Senator Welch view this entire federal operation as a baseless partisan fishing expedition. They argue the DOJ is intentionally weaponizing flawed federal databases like SaveE to suppress legal votes and illegally seizing the private data of American citizens in the process. So what does this all mean for you? Why does this deeply bureaucratic fight over OLC memos and state privacy laws actually matter to your life?
It's a great question.
Because this isn't just about who wins the LA mayor's race or who sits in the governor's mansion. This is a fundamental tug of war over who controls the data that proves you are a citizen. And ultimately, who has the power to police the ballot box? Does your local state government protect your data? Or does the federal government have the ultimate right to sweep it up and audit it?
It raises a critical issue and something I want to leave you to think about. Think about Senator Welch's mention of private contractors.
Yeah, that part is chilling.
We've focused so much today on the immediate political clash between the DOJ and California. But play this out long term. If the federal government eventually succeeds in forcing states to hand over the Social Security numbers, driver's license numbers, and dates of birth of tens of millions of voters,
Right.
and then shares that massive database with third-party private contractors to hunt for fraud, what happens to your data after the election is over? If this becomes the new standard norm for election auditing, what does that mean for the future of your personal privacy?
If you found this episode valuable, please like, subscribe, share, follow, and turn on notifications. It helps us continue bringing you content like this and ensures you never miss future releases.